From civil defense workers to federal courts, housing loans, national parks, and some veteran services, these are just a few of the areas hardest hit from Congress shutting down the federal government on Tuesday. Here with details on the trickle-down effect in San Diego is Marney Cox, chief economist with the Regional Association of Governments in San Diego. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Peggy.
Marney, how many workers in San Diego are not on the job right now because of this government shutdown?
About 33,000, according to the personnel management at the federal government.
And that's here in San Diego County. Of course, there's a lot more in California.
Yeah, about 150,000 in the state. California is about the fourth or fifth largest in terms of concentration of federal employees that have been impacted. The largest ones are, of course, Washington, D.C. and Virginia.
All right. And remind us of what is actually closed down locally because of the government shutdown.
Well, most what people will notice are the parks and things where they might visit it and go out for recreational purposes. Those are all been closed.
So Cabrillo National Park, all the national parks.
That's right. But the ones that are a little bit behind the scenes are the support staffs for many of the organizations. Although they remain open, they probably won't be able to process as much material, requests, assistance as they have in the past.
How about the IRS, WIC, the food stamps?
Yeah, the SNAP program continues to operate, but as I said earlier, one is a distribution end to make sure people continue to receive the food stamps. Another is processing new applications. That might be a different story. So people who are applying may end up with longer wait times to get processed. Same is true for across the board on many of these items, including, for example, passports.
And civil defense, now the civil defense workers who are not part of the military, they're also not getting paid, but the military is getting paid.
That's correct. In fact, there was a movement by President Obama to do exactly that, to make sure military families got continued to be paid.
What kind of impact could this have, the shutdown, I should say, on our overall economy here in San Diego?
It's going to be pretty small. It will be difficult to, it's about, these 33,000 jobs we're talking about are about 2% of total employment here in the region. So it's not insignificant. It's just that it would be hard to see it in the numbers that you typically look at. And typically we look at the numbers on a monthly basis. So this would have to extend some period of time for that to be really have an impact on the local economy. If it's over in a couple weeks here, right, it'd be difficult to identify. Now, if you're one of the households, right, that lost your job or put on furlough, then it's a different story, because you're having to take money out of savings or do something different than that in order to continue to buy food, pay your mortgage or your car payment or whatever else you may have.
Right, and those lost wages wouldn't impact the economy here?
Well, typically what happens, you're still going to pay your mortgage, you're still going to buy food, but you may be taking it out of savings to get that done. So immediately the demand side of the economy isn't impacted by very much at all. There is discretionary income. You don't go out and eat at a restaurant anymore. You may not go to the movies. That kind of stuff is about 15% of household budgets.
How long would this have to last or linger for it to really have an impact? About how much cushion do we have if this goes on for weeks or months?
I think in 2 weeks it could potentially have a resounding impact, because that's when the discussions over the deficit budget begin to occur. The ceiling that's currently in place today that allow the government not to spend over a certain amount of money. If it rolls into that, it will be hard to disentangle the impacts, but that again sets off wider reverberations in terms of what the government must do if it doesn't have enough money to spend.
What about the fact that, our housing economy has been recovering here? FHA loans, they're on hold now. What happens? Are people at risk of not getting those loans and buying the houses?
Yes, very much so. You put an offer in, and it typically it's good for a certain period of time, which allows you to get the approval process. If your lender can't approve you, then your offer expires. So you may miss the opportunity to purchase the house that you want.
How does this compare to the 1995 government shutdown?
Well, 1995 lasted over 20 plus days, so we have some time to go before we get that. But one of the biggest differences, the economy today. At the beginning of the 94-95 time period was the beginning of the most rapid expansion in San Diego's economy in the last 40 years. Through the year 2000, a lot of our emerging growth technology companies really began to blossom. Here we're sitting on the precipice of about a 2% rate of growth at the national level. San Diego, for example, this year looks much worse in terms of job generation than the previous year. So a lot slower growth, and the expectations over the next few years aren't much better.
Okay, we just have a little time left, but I do want to get to this. Congress is still getting paid to this right now during this time.
That's correct.
But they're under deadline, October 17th, to deal with the debt ceiling. Could you briefly tell us what the debt ceiling is and what happens if they drop the ball on that?
Congress agrees to spend up to a certain cap, and they can spend no more than that. We spend more than we earn, right, the revenue coming into the government. But what this says is that we have to raise the cap in order to spend enough to meet our obligations. If we can't do that, then some of those obligations won't get paid for. My understanding that the way they've decided to handle this, there's about 4 or 5 different things they could do, was as money comes in on a cash basis, they will pay for whatever they have enough money to pay for. All other things else will be pushed off into a later date when they have enough money. So you eventually will get it, but it'll probably be at a later date.
All right. Economist Marney Cox, thanks so much.
Thank you, Peggy.